Real Talk is proudly sponsored by Huawei and MTN.
Good evening and welcome to Real Talk with me, Azania Mosaka. My guest tonight is one who needs no introduction. She embodies the traits of a true media veteran and a jack of all trades. She's made her screen debut back in 2003 on South Africa's biggest soapie, Generations. And since then, she's hosted numerous TV shows, including The Big Break Legacy and One Day Leader, to name just a few. And these days, she's alongside Mo Flava, and they're responsible for captivating millions of listeners on Metro FM's Drive Time show, which she missed today, just to be here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Masechaba Ndlovu. Welcome to Real Talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so good to be here.
And I must say thank you. Thank you to Metro FM for letting me be here today. She needed to get into all of this.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
Mo Flava grilled me about it yesterday. Like, so you're missing a whole afternoon drive show.
For
to be
an
grilled by
interview.
Azza. I was like, don't put it like that. I'm like, but
Yes.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
And I'm grateful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, over the years, of course, watching you grow has been fantastic. We've had our ups and downs, our own issues, but we resolved them
Yes.
as the grown women that we are.
Yes.
So I want to, before we get to some of the more recent events,
Yeah.
I want us to get to know you better.
Yeah.
Let's get to know Masechaba Ndlovu a little bit better.
Okay.
Because your upbringing is an interesting one. It mirrors the upbringing of a lot of other people whose parents went into exile.
Yeah.
So you were born here, and then your parents left for Zambia and Zimbabwe.
So I was actually born in Lusaka, in Zambia, in 1983. And my sister followed shortly 5 years later.
Yeah.
And we are born to soldiers, revolutionaries who were based at that time in Zambia, but they've been all over with their assignments with the ANC, Umkhonto weSizwe. My mother left the country when she was 14 and a half.
Wow.
And she's been everywhere to countries like Congo, like, gosh, Tanzania. God, the list is endless. I mean, Swaziland, so many countries took our soldiers in and equipped them, you know, for the fight against the apartheid system.
And your father?
My father was a soldier too. He is a military veteran himself. He's also a former professional boxer. He was known as TNT, Ben Lekalake, Ben TNT Lekalake. And he met my mother in Zambia, in the camps. And by the way, you were not allowed to have love affairs.
Yes.
But they did.
Relations,
And thank God they did, because I'm here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there you are, growing up in the midst of all of this turmoil, being away from home. Were you told, what was your understanding as a child about why you were there, why you were not in South Africa?
So the one thing I'm grateful for is the fact that as much as my life was abnormal, but it felt normal because I was raised by bo comrade, you know? You know when they say it takes a community, a village to raise a child, such was the case with me. And growing up in different countries, having been in Soweto for a minute, and then growing up in the United States and understanding that we were expatriates, really just, the understanding for me was that my parents had a role to play that was bigger than themselves. I understood the concept of freedom from a very early age. I understood my history, my identity, my heritage, my language from a very early age because I was raised by people who are unapologetic.
Yeah.
And so it's been a huge blessing, even when I didn't know it was a blessing. But you grow up and you realize, wow, even just my name, Masechaba. Like
Mother of the
American
nation.
kids couldn't pronounce the name Masechaba. They used to call me Masenapi.
Ooh.
They used to call me Shaba. It was so annoying. And I'm like, why couldn't you just name me Lisa? But then when you grow up and you realize my name means mother of the nation.
Named after your grandmother,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And did you get to know her at all?
I did, very much. My grandmother raised me. So what happened was, when my sister was born, I was 5 years old. And we were smuggled. And by the way, I have to thank the Mlangeni family, Babsi Mlangeni, our very own singing legend.
Yes.
used his child's passport, Lebu Mlangeni, with my late auntie, took the risk of coming to Zambia to smuggle my sister and I into South Africa at a time when they could have gotten killed for that. And subsequently, we were both raised by my grandmother, who raised all of us. You know, me Masechaba lekalake. I mean, may her soul rest in peace. She only passed away like
with her?
now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 5-6 years ago, she passed away. So in terms of the traits, everybody says ke chobolo. I don't know how true that is, really. I think that's an exaggeration.
Ask your nieces and nephews.
Everyone seems to agree, so maybe they're right. But I shared a lot of traits with her. She was strong, you know. She stood in her truth. She was unapologetic. She was not afraid to tell you how she was feeling. And she wasn't afraid to live by her own rules. And if you didn't respect her, and if you didn't respect how she did things, you'd know very quickly.
Do you think that's where you got your level of confidence, trusting your voice, and to speak your truth whenever it's required? Is that where you got it from?
Oh, definitely. I would definitely say that my grandmother played a huge role in that. My mother equally played a huge role in that, because she's the one, when we were in the United States and I was being bullied by children for not speaking English, she's the one who taught me to be an individual, that you don't need validation. She taught me how to be self-driven. She bought me my first diary. She taught me how to recognize my thoughts, to be in tune with myself. So I have a lot of people to thank for the person that I am. Yeah.
You know, some of the things that you're recounting now remind me of the memories and how Sisonke Msimang lays out the exile experience from the way they grew up, from a child's perspective, from the family perspective, the people they were surrounded by, how that informed her worldview and sense of self.
Yeah.
So perhaps there's also a book in there for you at some point, you know, to reflect on all those things.
I definitely, you know, when I look at my life, it's no wonder many people have asked me, so when's this book coming out? I think at the right time, for the right reason, it will come out, because my life has always been about a higher calling.
Yeah.
I don't just want to write a book for the sake of, you know, oh, this is my life.
What is that calling?
Oh, wow. I see myself as a developer, you know? I've noticed, without even trying, just looking back at my life, how I have been an instrument in unleashing people's potential and assisting people, facilitating the growth, the development of others. I definitely think that's what my calling is.
You found your place.
Yeah.
It resonates.
Yeah.
But you were a shy child at the same time.
Yeah.
Was it because of the bullying? Did that make you become a little bit reclusive to yourself in light of what was happening around you with how other kids reacted to you?
I would say it was probably mostly genetic, because I know my mother was a shy child. I know I have a son who's a shy child. However, the circumstances that I found myself in were definitely situations that perhaps perpetuated that shyness.
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe even tested my growth. And if I was able to move past that, or if I was going to shrink even further. So, you know, living in a country where you can't speak the language, and then you learn the language, and then you move to another country, and then you can't speak that language. I mean, my first language was Sinyanja. You know, it's a Zambian language. All I know how to say now is Bulibanj. And then I had to learn Sesotho, and then coming to Soweto, you know, adjusting to that life, and then going to the States, and then learning English, and then all of these things, I think, if anything, brought me out of my shell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have, you know, South Africans, as we tend to be, we're very critical.
Yeah.
Do people ever take shots at you, or have they in the past, for still having the lingering American touch to your accent?
Oh, yeah. Especially at the start of my career. People always took shots. I remember when I was producing and presenting Weekend Live, and some people would comment about, oh my God, this girl watches too much television. Who does she think she is?
Without knowing your background.
There was a time in my life where I felt the need to explain that no, I actually wasn't even born in South Africa. I was actually born in Lusaka in Zambia, and I learned how to speak the Zambian local language first, and then I learned Sesotho, and then I got to a point where I was like, why am I explaining myself? For who?
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
And it became something that I embraced to the point that even comments like that didn't get to me. Because if you don't know me, you don't get to comment about me. In fact, you can comment all you want, but you don't get my attention.
Right. So your sister wasn't with you in those formative years.
Yeah.
She followed afterwards.
Yes, she did.
So
No,
you
she didn't even follow. We came back and found her in Soweto.
So how does she feel about that?
Yo,
Did that bring about a lot of conversations?
that's a very interesting, in fact, no one has ever asked me that question. And I've only recently tapped into how she felt about that, because I can't imagine being the one who was left behind, you know? And your older sister is taken to the States, and she's the one who gets all these worldly experiences. And then wena uko Soweto, uhuliswa ke nkgono wa hao. I've never thought about all of that until recently, when I look at our relationship and I ask myself, how would I have felt?
Yes.
I grew up feeling like the black sheep. Meanwhile, she grew up feeling like the black sheep, because she was like, I'm
Removed
the
from
one who
family.
was left behind.
Yeah.
No, she got to stay with the family, but I'm the one who was taken by my parents.
yeah.
But the reason was purely because they were young and they couldn't afford to look after a little baby. At least I was at the stage where I could talk and I could look after myself. I was what they call in the States a latchkey child. And what that is a kid, 7 years old, you got your own key, you let yourself into the apartment, you make your own food, you know, do your own homework. By the time your parents who are students come back home, everything is done, you've had your dinner.
And not even students, but by virtue of needing to survive, back then, our parents worked long hours.
Exactly.
So you literally got yourself to school, made your lunch, sorted out your socks and your shirts, you name it.
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that. We've got a caller for you, Masechaba. We've got Zweli calling from Vosloorus. Good evening, Zweli. Welcome. Welcome to Real Talk.
Hello, Azania, how are you?
Very good. You can chat to Masechaba.
Hello, Masechaba, how are you? Azin, you changed my life. You changed my life. I just want to say thank you for being such an inspiration in my life, in every woman's life in South Africa. They look up to you. You're not apologetic. You tell the truth the way it's supposed to. You change lives. Like today, I was suffering a depression before I met you, but since I met you, just listening to you each and every day, it gives me that belief that one day I'll make it. I just want to say thank you so much for being such an inspiration to me.
Thank you.
Oh, it's really excellent call. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it gives meaning to the work you do.
Yeah.
Lots of meaning.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it makes it all worthwhile, you know. And you know when they say the higher up you go, the harder the wind blows. Such has been the case in my life. But it's people like Zweli who validate my existence.
Well, we'll explore some of that, you know, how hard these winds tend to blow up there. Well, our guest tonight is Masechaba Ndlovu, and we continue our conversation with her after the break. But make sure you give us a call. The number's on your screen right now. Don't miss this opportunity. Welcome back to Real Talk on SABC 3, and tonight we're in conversation with award-winning co-host of the Metro FM Drive Time show, Masechaba Ndlovu, who co-hosts it with Mo Flavor. Masechaba, so that was a great call from Zweli. But let's go back to how you came into this career. You know, so did you ever have a sense of what you wanted to do as a child?
Yo, as a child.
Yeah.
As a child, this was the furthest thing from my imagination. I was the shy child that you spoke about. I was an introvert. I was a bookworm. I didn't have any friends. I couldn't speak out loud. I was antisocial. My mother would always say, you are the next Oprah. Looking at this woman like, okay. You know how...
Wait, what gives you that idea?
I mean, you know how our mothers are so powerful. They can prophesy something way before anyone sees it. And to tell you the truth, I studied journalism so I could write. It had nothing to do with radio or television, but television found me, and then radio found me.
So where's the children's book that you wrote when you were younger?
How do you know about that?
I win that. We have files.
I see y'all do your research. Okay. Some of them have been published in American children's magazines, thanks to my mom, who secretly would submit them, you know, without my knowledge. And believe it or not, I've actually got a couple of more books, 4 that are complete, children's books that I've recently written on freedom stalwarts, unknown, unsung heroines.
Yes, yes.
I started with the story of my mother, the story of my father, and there are 2 others that I don't want to reveal. I've done the animation. And the reasoning behind that was I got sick and tired of reading Disney books to my children every single night, talking about characters that we can't relate to, about background stories that have got nothing to do with us. So instead
And
of
breaking that single story, because
breaking
there's
the
such
single
a danger with the single story.
Yeah.
Because so many of us can't relate.
like Chimamanda Adichie
Yes,
says,
absolutely.
right? Because there are so many stories and there are layers and layers that are not being told that it is up to us to be the authors of our own story. And so I'm starting with me. I'm starting with my kids.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Can't wait for them to be published. But then, so you wanted to do journalism, you studied journalism, but getting into this industry is a hell of a task, a hell of a job.
Yeah. And that's the part where, for me, when I say the industry, television found me, I wasn't out there looking to be on TV, you know? So one thing led to another. I'd never even done drama in my life.
Yeah.
But the minute I was put in front of a camera, like instant rapport, I realized that I had it. But it's not like I was, you know, where I am now in terms of the quality of my output. But you know when they say your stars are aligned?
Yes.
Aza, my stars have always been aligned. And I think God was like, we are going to use you.
Whether you
And it's
like
not
it
in
or
the way
not.
that you think.
Yeah.
I come from a family of healers, and healers isn't necessarily about being a doctor in a doctor's room in a practice or ulele sangoma kondumbeng. Healing can also be done in the spaces that you occupy.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. Through the work that we do.
Exactly.
Through these platforms
Exactly.
that we occupy. And there's a great responsibility that comes with it as well.
Yeah, you
but
are
a lot
here.
of people have had to do other things before they get there.
Yeah.
I was in the UK, I remember working in a CD warehouse, packing orders, as in CDs. They want 3 Michael Jackson, the Thriller album, there we go.
Yeah.
They want 5 Mendozas, there we go.
Yeah.
You know, so what have you had to do before the acclaim, before the fame?
So I worked in a factory at Nampak, packing the airtime voucher. So
when they were still on cards.
when they were still on cards. So I was part of the quality control system where you had to make sure there were 10 in a packet and you had to put the elastic around those things.
Yes.
I used to check in. I had night shift. That was the worst. You know when you feel motherless? Like, I love my sleep, eh? So I used to work. Sometimes you check in the evening, you check out in the morning. And I'm working with old grannies at that time. And sometimes that, hey, tsoa, eh? And they tell you, well, you'll be fired if they catch you sleeping. And you're like, okay. And that time, it's because I was going to auditions during the day, you know? I was discovered by someone who didn't even know me, who recommended an agent. And I was like, okay, if this is where I'm going to get money, let me just do it.
Yeah.
But that was where I was sent.
Auditioning is hard.
Yeah, it is a lot of work.
Was this for acting roles?
This was for everything. That's the time when I had no direction in my career. I didn't know whether I was going left or right.
The how.
The how.
As in, how is this going to happen?
Exactly. I hadn't figured out the how. I hadn't even known my calling at the time, you know? Someone just said, you've got something, and I think you should tap into it. And I was just like, okay, let me give this thing a shot. But very quickly into my career, I decided I'm not going to just take any job. I'm going to be deliberate about what I want to do.
But getting there requires you to have taken jobs that
Oh, lots.
that you were not
I'm
aligned.
praying you're not going to mention them.
What are they? Which roles are those that were not
I'm
aligned?
praying you're not going to mention them. All right. I don't want to say these jobs were not aligned, but they're certainly not jobs that were in my future. So I was on Generations when it was still popping, you know. Am I allowed to say that? It is.
It still gets
okay.
huge ARs, yes.
I played a prostitute in Ndlovu's house. It was great experience in terms of camera work and that sort of thing. I've been on backstage as an actress, as a lead role. I was Chipa's girlfriend. I can't even remember the name of the I think Gamu.
Yeah.
I was Gamu. She was a lawyer who came from the States. They even gave me my own family. And I very quickly got out of that. I think I was there for like 6 months.
So what didn't you like about it?
I didn't like the airs and graces that the actors and the actresses came with, you know. I found that the actors and actresses on backstage, which was a far lesser production in terms of popularity and that sort of thing had bigger egos, you know, and you're dealing with people who got big egos, but they've got no level of professionalism. They rock up to set and they've not practiced their lines. Generations, I was working with professionals, you know, that whole original cast, you know, who were professional, who were my sisters, my brothers, who protected me and shaped me and that sort of thing. So I very quickly realized, this thing is fickle. It's not for me.
Yeah. So how has that located the notion of fame? Because we're a country that is obsessed with fame. There are queues upon queues of people wanting to get in.
So for me, you know, I very quickly realized that I'm not in this game for fame, you know, because even some of my colleagues at backstage would say to me, are you attending this award ceremony? Are you attending that event? And when I say no, they're like, why? I won't even tell you who, you know who that is. Why? I don't see how it's going to add value to me. But a Masechaba, out of sight, out of mind. You have to be on the red carpet. You got to be everywhere. You got to be seen.
We live that pressure.
I'm like, if I have to be seen, to be recognized, I am clearly not working hard.
Let the work speak for itself.
Amen.
Yeah, let the work speak for itself.
Amen.
And then there was One Day Leader. So there's been a mishmash. There's been like this poikikos of all sorts of things in your career. The acting on the one hand, the current affairs, the presenting of a debates show. So there's a lot that you've kind of been attracted to, tested, put your toes in it, discovered whether you liked it or not. So what's informed all these variety of choices?
Oh my goodness. So the journey in itself saw me grow and get to know myself and get closer to my calling. So I started out in acting and very quickly realized, you know, maybe not. And I put that aside deliberately because I moved into programming. Urban Brew Studios was a big part of my growth and my development as a producer, as a presenter, researcher. And getting into a space where I was getting closer, I was getting into factual program. I discovered that I'm more interested in factual
more
program.
alive.
You know what I mean?
You're alive with what you're doing.
That's it. So I started getting into factual programming and then very quickly realized that I'm in love with current affairs. And as soon as I left Urban Brew, I was headhunted for the very first time in my life at the age of, I think I was 22, by SABC to produce a brand new Pan-African entertainment news show. I had to come up with a name. And by God's grace, I already had a concept that I'd drafted up. Look at God. You know, so I had to literally build a show from scratch and present the show. Well, we called it Afro Showbiz News. It was a sensation all over Africa when we still had SABC Africa. And then from there was headhunted by Morning Live when Cindy Mabe left to go to ETV, right? To join the ETV breakfast show. Then decided to join that because that gave me my first live experience. And then from there, I would pretty much say I'd found my calling.
Yeah. And you haven't stopped. Haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I left news, by the way. And the whole leaving of news was so that I could get back into more live, impactful programming because news for me became a one-way street where I was the deliverer of bad news, but what are we doing
What are we doing about it? It is a very special place to be in. Doing Talk Now, I can attest to that it's a very unique and very special place to occupy. There's still so much more. There's still so much more to talk about with this Wonder Woman. So after the break, we continue the conversation with Masechaba and Ndlovu. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Real Talk on SABC3, where the stage is yours. Right now, I've been in conversation with the gorgeous Masechaba Ndlovu. Don't forget, you can give us a call if you want to comment or ask a question. So, Masechaba, this all sounds, reads, looks like a great fairy tale, career-wise, that is. Career-wise. So how do you deal with the question of doubt, question of uncertainty?
I've learned to center myself every day. And I ask myself one question every single day. And that question is why? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Because the minute you lose the why and it no longer resonates with you, or the space doesn't make sense, or it doesn't bring you fulfillment, it will not bring you confidence, it won't bring you joy.
Or you feel like you're not growing.
Exactly.
You've plateaued.
Exactly.
There's just no more challenge. You're not at the edge anymore. There's
Yeah.
quite an appeal,
Yeah.
especially for me, about being on the edge,
Yeah.
living on the edge,
Right.
because that's where you experience the most.
Yeah.
And you get to discover yourself in so many ways.
And also-
because that comfort zone doesn't bring about
It doesn't bring growth.
change.
I've also learned that it's not about perfection. It's about authenticity.
Yeah.
So the day, years ago, when I stopped striving to be perfect and just strive to be genuine, was the day that I freed myself from those type of doubts. Yeah.
We've got another caller, in fact. Oh, thank you for responding to the question that you come on and also comment. Kholo, good evening.
Good evening, Azania and Masechaba. How are you guys?
We're very
are
good.
well.
Go ahead with your comment.
Hi, Masechaba. Thank you so much. I first want to say thank you so much for being such an inspiration. I listen to you every day driving back from home, and you make my drive such, so much easy. And I like how you are so unapologetic about everything, and standing up for our femicide and standing up for women rights particularly. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for fighting. Thank you so much for not growing tired of fighting. Thank you. You've got such a good fighting spirit, and thank you, Masechaba.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, she could go on with the thank
Oh,
yous.
man.
So,
Special.
shifting now, you went from current affairs and you went into music radio.
Sure.
And you found Mo Flava there.
Yeah.
He was already doing 3 to 6
Yes.
afternoon drive. And here you are, the new addition to the show. How was that reception? I know Metro. I know music
from
radio.
Who exactly? The reception from the
Reception
people?
from the team that you found
From the
there,
team.
that had already built the show.
All right. So I get about to get real talk. So I'm
Yes.
about to get real, right?
Yes.
So it was difficult. It was really difficult because, it was the most unexpected partnership. However, it's taken a lot of fights. People don't know Mo Flava and I have fought behind the scenes. It's taken a lot of maturity. It's taken a lot of standing in our own truth and my own truth to get to the place where we are now, where we are the best of friends, literally the best of friends.
Yeah.
I mean, our sons are even the best of friends,
Yes.
Where
It's great when that happens, when your colleagues become family.
Yeah, it's a marriage, this thing, And it was never easy because I'll be very honest with you, to get thrown into a show, and not even just a show, a space where you are expected to create an equal partnership, and yet the actual technical environment is not conducive for a partnership. If you look at the way that Metro FM is set up,
Yes, that's
it is
really
not
the
for
design.
two
precisely.
people. It's for one person
Yeah.
to drive that desk. So me
It
coming
almost
in,
as if it envelops you, that desk.
it's about one person. So I'm sitting on the sidelines, but I was specifically told that I'm brought in to create a partnership and to break that whole sort of stereotype of women being side chicks in radio shows and that sort of thing. We need two equal partners, two strong broadcasters.
Gosh, I can't believe that those battles are still there.
The battles
I
are
can't
still
believe
there.
those battles are still
They're
there.
still
when
there.
I went in,
Yeah.
the notion of women having their own shows was one that was quite challenging.
Yeah.
So to go in as a woman to do the breakfast show on a commercial radio station was like, oh, what are they doing?
I know, right?
So to think that those thoughts or the perceptions
Yeah.
and those opinions still prevail shows that there's a long way to go.
They still prevail, and management may or may not be aware of it, but on the ground, I'm like, okay, y'all sent me out here into this battlefield, but do you know what the struggle is down
Exactly.
here?
Been there,
And if
done
I were
that.
weak,
Sure.
I would not be at Metro FM today.
Yeah.
Or Mo Flava and I would not even be vibing. But I fought with him with love. And today, we've got the most amazing, the most respectful relationship. He's one of the most mature people and the most misunderstood that I've ever met. He's an incredible dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the partnership has certainly yielded some interesting things, some interesting outcomes as far as the content is produced, as far as the content goes. So how's that transition? Because when you're dealing with current affairs, you are helping to drive the national agenda. You are there to explain to people, make sense of their world to them. News breaks, you're there to make sense of the world for them.
Yeah.
And then you leave that to go and be part of the goof goof. Where's the party this weekend live? Huh? You had it, ne? You've always had it. You just tapped into that
it's
other
always
part of
been
you.
in me, and I think you would know that. You know, I mean, even when I was on the previous talk show, my radio show at Power FM, I've always had a very robust energy, and it's just me, you know. However, the adjustment was a very difficult one initially because I have to tell you, I mean, I had a meeting with my station manager after the first week, and she said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I don't want to lie to you, I'm not fine." I felt like I was coming to work and I was leaving and I hadn't done anything.
Yes, it's like, what was the takeout? What was the impact today? A song, yes, and?
Maybe the song changed someone's life.
Yeah.
Until I realized that my mandate, the reason why I was brought here, is to make sure that we are fulfilling the mandate of
Everywhere.
entertaining and impacting at the same
yes.
time.
That it shouldn't be confined to just people listening or engaging with current affairs or listening to talk radio.
Thank
but
you.
that it should be everywhere.
Exactly.
So earlier I'd asked you about this question of when you've doubted or when you've been uncertain. There's also this uncertainty about whether or not you are a healer. And I mean that in the African spiritual sense. Otwasitse.
No. You know, and it's an interesting thing because I know there's a lot of curiosity, possibly because people have, I've shared images of myself at various traditional ceremonies and, you know, kia paranjiti, kia patla, ke ngwana badimo and that sort of thing. Hakatwasa. But people have to understand what the process of initiation is not always about one linear format. It is also about the journey. So if you look at the fact that Nelson Mandela, and it's his centenary year, interestingly, spent 27 years in prison, for 27 years, they were preparing him to take that leadership, that healing role, you know? But from a formal, traditional point of view, Hakatwasa, I am a healer, and I've never sort of positioned myself as someone Olele Sangoma or a traditional healer or anything like that. I'm surrounded by healers, and I don't even go out there and look at that. Oh my God, yes.
It's God.
So you know, I don't even go out there looking for healers. I attract healers. The people in the studio today, my sister's a healer. I mean, my team, I mean, both of them, Sabelo, Tepo, these are healers, you know?
Yeah.
And somehow we find each other. Healers always attract healers. But yes, I am a healer, and no, Hakatwasa, and no, I'm not a Sangoma, but I'm a healer.
Is there a calling?
There is definitely.
Will there be a time when you undergo the process from what you've come to know and discover?
I've been told by Baba Holo, traditional healers, everywhere I go. I think maybe over 200 people have told me, some that I know, some that I don't know. Masechaba, uyotwasa nini? Yazi manga twasa. Bayokuthathela yonke into. And ngere yoyithi ke ngere yoyithi ke ntate ke a o hlompha ne. But nna ha ile nako ya ka ya o twasa. Badimo ba ka ba tlo mpolella hore ke e kae, ke ko mang. And in some instances people don't realize hore it's not always about ho twasisa ke motho. Sometimes your ancestors are so powerful that they tell you what to do and they tell you where to go.
It's about intuition, being in tune.
I have a gift of prophecy, Aza. Nna ke a bontshiwa, to the point where I will dream about certain people in my life and they know who they are. And I will pick up the phone and phone them in. And then it turns out that the dream was actually a warning signal for them. Or something that has got an answer to a question that they've been asking. I get shown dreams very vividly. So I'm not asking Horokilo Twasa. In fact, I'd be very happy if they don't do that to me. You know, because I'm like, I'm working. What do you want me to do? You know? We'll see.
We'll see. Oh, this journey is unfolding. It's unfolding in a beautiful way. Well, let's take a quick break and we'll see you after this. Welcome back to Real Talk, and tonight we have the ever so graceful, ever so stylish Masechaba Ndlovu joining us on Real Talk. You know, when we posted that you're going to be on the show, people are like, I can't wait to see her haircut. Look at her.
I'm so sorry to disappoint you guys. And you know, to this day, that's the one thing. I mean, apparently, I'm number 23 and number 22. You know those posters. Yeah, we were number 1, number 2, number 3, number 23, number 25.
Yes, can I please have number 23?
Yeah,
We were,
that
okay.
one. All over the country.
Great.
I mean, that's my signature style, but I'm also a human. I'm a woman. I want to explore.
I want to change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
No, it's all working.
Yeah.
So let's go back to this interview. You made headlines recently for an interview that you did with Babes Wodu. And then, of course, there was an opportunity for a right of reply with Mampintsha a couple of days later on. And it trended, Babes trended, you trended. And it was quite a divisive one. People found themselves on either side of the debate. So I want us to go back, because you haven't talked about it since that day. What was the conversation going into this interview with Babes?
You're right when you say that I haven't spoken about it since. It's all been very deliberate. As a matter of fact, this is the very first interview exclusive that I've said yes to since that entire thing. I've said no to every single newspaper, magazine, radio, television platform you can imagine. Because immediately after what happened during the interview with Babes, I felt like the attention was misdirected. I felt like there was a far greater cause in front of us, and I did not want to be paraded as the hero or the heroine or the instigator or Sandla says tattoo, or, you know, it was not about me. I felt like, let's have the conversation, but let's focus on the real issues here. Women are dying in this country.
So was your intention then, before this interview, talking to her about her latest song and so on, to have a catch up with her, but to also bring this up? Was that the intention?
I'm going to be very honest with you. But obviously, my honesty also has to be measured for Babes' protection, right? Babes and her manager approached me at the Black Panther premiere. And my heart simply broke when I saw, I mean, she was well put together. We even have a picture together.
I saw that.
You were there.
Saw that.
Well put together. We even have a picture together. But if you looked at her face, there was a great sadness. And it all made sense when they approached me and told me, they approached me to help Babes. Babes needs help.
In her presence.
In her presence.
She needs help, Masechaba. I need help.
Help her, please.
Did she say help me?
She is terrified. She was there with her manager, Keke. And they approached me. They needed help. She doesn't know how to get away from Mampintsha. And Keke had done as much as she could to remove her from that situation. And she was representing her at that point in time. And I couldn't understand why they're approaching me.
So why was the strategy then to do it in the form of a radio interview?
That wasn't even part of the strategy.
To bring people that she would need to counsel her, to help her privately?
It wasn't even part of the strategy. You know, what happened next was I gave them my number and I said, what do you want to do? No, apparently Babes is ready to come out and talk about her story. Okay, but she wants to speak to you, she wants to see you, she wants to come to your house. It doesn't happen every day that guests want to come to my house and have a conversation beforehand, but because she sees me as a big sister in the limelight, we don't know each other. I have to make it very clear that Babes and I are not friends. We've never been friends, we've never had a relationship. But it's not the first time that people I don't know approach me. I get DMs all the time from people wanting to commit suicide. You know, somehow people find that they can trust me, right? So we set up a time for her to come to my house, and we set up another time, and 4 times in a row, these meetings were canceled because Babes was scared of what Mampintsha was going to do, but she wants to come out. So come to the day of the interview, right? They decided to pull back just before the interview because now Babes is terrified. This guy's going to kill me. I can't do this thing anymore. And I'm like, listen, it's okay. I respect what you say. I respect, you know, how you feel. We're going to carry on. We'll just speak about the music. And we had decided just before the interview, we're told, don't go there anymore. She doesn't want to do it anymore.
But you did.
And I did. And you know what, Azza? I'm going to tell you the truth right now. what I did was unprofessional. It went against the code of conduct of broadcasting. And you know the journalistic code of ethics. You know what they are. In that moment, not only did I
You re-traumatized.
break the rules, not only did I break the rules, but I basically threw my entire career under the bus by trying to protect a young lady. I removed my professional cap and I stopped being a broadcaster and I became a human and I became a woman. Because in that moment, what people don't know is that off air, she was shaking because he was stalking her on her phone. That was the first interview that he didn't know about because they'd broken up.
What's interesting is that watching that video, watching that interview back, is that she neither denies nor confirms what you and Mo were saying about what had happened in her relationship.
Yeah.
So her story was told by you, by the two of you. And as someone who works in this industry and also a woman who's quite aware of the scourge in this country of gender-based violence, I was also quite torn because on the one hand, it's important that these issues be outed. It's important. And yet on the other hand, she was in your space, in your home, which is your studio, and she had been humiliated and her dignity stripped of her in a private setting. And here was her dignity being stripped of her in a public setting. And yet at the same time, there's the interest, the public interest to balance that with. And I think for many people, it had to be about what you place the most weight on.
Yeah.
Preserving her and protecting her versus addressing these issues head on.
So that's the point at which, you know, unfortunately, we have to clarify that. The entire truth is going to come out. And every single female public figure who decided to take it upon themselves to speak about what they knew nothing about is going to be incredibly embarrassed. I'm sorry to tell you this. There's a backstory, Azza, that I can't even tell here on this platform. I didn't humiliate Babes. Babes was relieved. I've got recordings of conversations between myself. I got phone calls from Babes, her mother, her father, her uncle, the people in her life. And on that note, we have to make it very clear that it is the women who are most traumatized by what I did, who didn't even understand the backstory. There were no surprises there.
For her.
The intention was to free her so that Mampintsha couldn't hurt her anymore. But now here's the problem. The one problem is that there is something called battered wife syndrome. Battered wives often go back. If you ever ask me, do I have regrets for taking a fall for Babes? Everyone knew what was happening in that room, in that situation. Everybody did.
That's what I'm saying. Listening back, it actually becomes
There were
quite
no
evident.
surprises
It becomes
to
very
Babes.
evident.
There were
when
no
you listen
surprises.
again.
Yeah.
The first time you hear it, there is that shock, that why, you know, and then the second time you can hear that there's actually another intention
There
behind
is
this.
a
There is something that
bigger
is much
story
more
happening that I couldn't
premeditated.
discuss on social media because at the end of the day, the rest of it is for her to tell. The part that I revealed for her on her behalf was
This is the tip.
Azania.
I think we have to take a break.
Aza.
We have to take a break right here because this conversation is getting heated, but we have to cut to break and we'll let you go and have a sip of water. Take it all in. We'll be back after the break. More with Masechaba and Ndlovu. Welcome back to Real Talk. We've almost come to the end of the show, but on the couch with us is trailblazing media broadcaster Masechaba and Ndlovu. So you've prophesied, and we will wait for the rest of the details around that particular saga, and hoping that, of course, it brings about meaningful change, that it continues to drive change in our society when it comes to gender-based violence. But you also made another bold step not too long ago. You posted the fact that you and your husband have decided to be separated. And one of the things that you said in that post was that when you're no longer excited about the life that you're leading, what happened? What went wrong?
You know, I'll tell you about that in just a second, but I just want to say, because I was wrapping it up before we went to an ad break, Azza, that, you know, if anybody had to ask me about the situation with Babes and if I have any regrets, I generally don't have regrets in life, but the only one lesson that I've learned is that no matter how broken someone is, even if they come to you crying for help, you cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. And on that note, I just want to say shame on institutions like Power, who had the nerve to come onto television talking about agency and women's rights to tell their story in their own time. When was that going to be? At her funeral. The people who stepped in and offered protection and offered legal advice and were there physically for me and for Babes were the men from Not In My Name. And they were the only people who physically said, what do you need? To this day, they are offering protection. And she took it until she decided that, you know, whatever she wants to do with her life has got nothing to do with anyone anymore. We've done everything we can do.
Yeah. So let's close that chapter.
So now that that chapter is closed,
as you said, will play out as far as that's concerned, because we're running out of time, and I want us to look at this other aspect that has you, because when we met just now before the start of the show, you said today, at this moment, I am fine.
Yeah. I'm literally just taking it one day at a time, Azza, you know. And the truth is that marriage is a difficult institution. And sometimes you go in there, you and your partner, really undermining what it takes to really have a successful marriage. And not only from a sort of roles perspective, but understanding yourself and what it is to be a good wife, what it is to be a good husband. And I don't want to lie to you, you know, we are separated, but divorce is not on the cards. Sometimes you have to take 5 steps back to take 10 steps forward. My husband is an incredible man. I love him. And I know that he loves me, and we love our children.
On it? You are working on the marriage.
We are going for counseling, and we are learning each other again, and it's a painful process. It really is.
I wish you all of the best.
Thank you.
Divorce is hard. It's hard on the family. It's hard on the children. Every single day, as you said, you just deal with it as it comes. You deal with every single part, every single day as it comes. So all of the best with that, Masechaba.
Thank you very much. It takes a lot of maturity, and we're still good friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's an update on that front. I want to thank you all at home for joining us tonight. And I also want to thank our guest, Masechaba, once again for gracing us with her presence and giving us some real talk from me and the Real Talk team. It's good night. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Real Talk is proudly sponsored by Y-Way and MTN.